very proud, privileged and happy to have Mr. Tushar Gandhi here, founder, president of Mahatma Gandhi Foundation, India. Very warm welcome to you at our studios.
Thank you very much.
Happy Gandhi Jayanti to you.
Same to you.
The activities of the foundation, I wish it was propagated more. I wish, we could scream it from the rooftops, but that's one of the primary reasons why I wanted to get in touch with you. Talk about things which you're deeply, you have deep conviction about, you're passionate about, and what are the forefront of those activities?
Well, the foundation was established in 97 with the idea of establishing an electronic archive. Mm-hmm. At that time, and even now, the archival facilities are so shockingly abysmal in India.
Correct.
There are a lot of prime material related with Bapu and his times and history was in a very poor condition. And so we decided that if we were not capable of, saving the original material, we would at least attempt to digitize as much of it as we could and save it in the digital format so that in future, that would be available for people for reference and for replicating it. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the prime programs that we started this foundation with. We have been doing a lot of work on that. It's going on soon. The website will be available for people to refer to. But with that, we have also been working with many rural projects where the Gandhian ideology is in some way or the other doing constructive work. One of the prime projects that we are associated with at the moment is in Kolhapur, where we are establishing a shelter and campus, educational campus for rescued child laborers. There is a local organization that has been working with these children for a long time, and we are helping it expand its work and its abilities. So we've bought 5 acres of land, and children engaged in hazardous work activities and facing all sorts of exploitation are rescued and sheltered in that place. And what we intend to provide is to have a vocational training center over there so that these children who under certain circumstances are not capable of, coping with the academical education that is provided can at least equip themselves with technical skills and improve their lives that way.
They do live in shocking conditions, don't they?
Oh, yes.
Please tell us about that.
No matter how I describe their plight to you, largely these children are rescued from brick kilns because in that area there's a lot of brick kiln activity which is seasonal. And what happens is these migrant laborer families come and live on site. They have small shocking shanties on the site and the site they're working on, and each member of the family is forced to work because the economics is such that 2 idle hands will not be able to feed a mouth.
That's right.
So each pair of hands has to perform. And these children, because they are not capable of doing anything else, what they end up doing is transport bricks from the molding area to the kiln where they're stacked up, or from the kiln to the trucks where they're sent off. And the rate for transporting these bricks for the children is 17 rupees for every 1,000 bricks transported by them. It's very shocking, and again, it's very difficult to imagine this, but I have seen children with their skulls flattened because they carry brick loads on their heads, and in order to earn more, they attempt to carry much more than what they're physically capable of, which has resulted in actually their skulls flattening off on the top. And this is their plight. This is what they have to be rescued from. So this is an attempt by which we hope that in a few years' time we will have this entire facility where we intend to finally host at least 150 to 200 children.
Tushar Gandhi is the great-grandson of the Mahatma, also doing yeoman service as founder-president of the Mahatma Gandhi Foundation India. The site is under construction, but eventually it does sound very exciting from his conversation. It will be up, and you should go and take a look at it. It's themahatma.org.in, www.mahatma.org.in. Just moving to the lighter side of it all, I believe you were born on a train.
Yes.
Tell our listeners about that.
I've been a born traveler. Yes, my father's maternal family lives in Vidarbha in Akola, and one of his mother's sister is a gynecologist. So it was planned that I would be born in Akola under her care, and so my parents were going there, but realized I was in a bit of a hurry, so I was born on the Howrah Mail via Nagpur on 17th January.
Obviously, you don't have too many vivid memories of that, but I'm sure the family has been told many tales of that eventful day or night.
I was a bit dark at birth, and mother says that it could have been because there was a cold wave. It was January and that area is very cold. And so I sort of turned a little blue at birth. And when the word spread that, there was a baby who was born on the train, many people came to see the train baby, as I was known then. And there were many comments made about the color of my skin. And because in those days we had steam engines which belched out coal-laden smoke into the air, many people said that had settled onto my skin and turned it black. So
conspiracy theories.
Thank God there wasn't any scam at that time. Otherwise, I would have been alleged to be part of it at birth.
In conversation with the Mahatma's great-grandson, Tushar Gandhi, founder-president of the Mahatma Gandhi Foundation, India. I'm very curious to know, there are always two sides to the Gandhi story, for the public, for the nation, he was the father. Then you have all these plays, stories being written about, how he was never able to devote the kind of time that he wanted to or perhaps could devote to the family. Have stories been handed down from generation to generation? Your father, perhaps, your grandfather, about him with the family, his demeanor, his behavior, his feelings?
Yeah, there have been. Unfortunately, I was born much after he was murdered, but my father had the opportunity to spend time with him and lived with him on some of his ashrams. And so there were lots of stories that happened, incidents that happened that have turned into stories. When I was a child, when I demanded a story from my father of my grandmother, the stories always revolved around their experiences with Bapu. Sometimes I used to get pretty fed up and, throw tantrums that why wasn't I being told stories about princes and princesses and fairies? And instead, every time I wanted a story, it would start when we were in so-and-so ashram kind of thing. But now I have realized that those were being told to me so that I would be able to understand my legacy much better and come to terms with it. And so I am very happy and grateful that I had this opportunity to listen to these stories firsthand from people who had experienced them. One of the stories that my grandmother told me was about the time when Bapu and Sardar Patel were staying at the Nature Cure Hospital of Dr. Dinsha Mehta in Pune. And my grandmother was there at that time, and she said one afternoon a youth came with a big basket which was wrapped in pink paper, and he said that he wanted to hand it over to Bapu personally because it was a present for him. But Bapu at that time was in his mid-afternoon rest time, and so my grandma asked him to wait for some time before Bapu would awaken. After some time, they noticed that the youth had vanished and left the basket behind. So when Bapu got up, he was told about it. So he asked for the basket. And when it was opened, they found that it contained a heap of torn and used footwear, chappals.
Oh my God.
That was supposed to be an insult for Bapu. If it had happened with any of the leaders of today, we would have had a spate of buns and things.
Riots.
But Bapu smiled at it and he asked his grandnephew, he says, take this present to the market and sell it off to the trash merchant who, people who buy these kind of things. And it was said that he earned 5 rupees from the sale of those tattered footwear, which he, deposited in the Harijan fund that he used to run for the betterment of the Dalits. next day during the prayer meeting in the evening, Bapu announced that he was grateful to the anonymous friend who had given him a precious present of the footwear, and he was thankful because it fetched him 5 rupees which went into the fund. Now this man who had given the gift was there, and he got up and he became abusive. He says, that was my property and you had no right to sell it off. Bapu told him, he said, you gave it to me as a present, then I do what I like with it. And of course then, because that guy was threatening to become violent, he was escorted away by the volunteers from the prayer meeting. After his murder, when the photograph of Nathuram Godse were published in the papers, my grandmother, who lived in South Africa, saw his photograph and she remembered it was the same youth who had given the basket full of footwear
Goodness
to
gracious
Bapu.
me.
And that story taught me 2 things. That, an insult is something that you decide to let happen to you. If you consider it as an insult, then it hurts. But if you consider it as a gift, you can turn it around and make it useful for good. And that has a profound lesson that I think that every one of us should learn, because it brings about humility to accept abuse without retaliating.
In conversation with Tushar Gandhi, he is founder president of the Mahatma Gandhi Foundation, and of course another reason he is here is because it's Gandhi Jayanti today and he is the Mahatma's great grandson. The fast was used by Bapu for means which were very, very sacred. I mean, to him it meant so much to him, and today the fast is being used for various other methods and means. Through the ages, stories being told about his fasting. Tell our listeners about the primary reason why he chose to fast, and why unfortunately a lot of that has been misconstrued and changed and twisted by people to meet their own personal needs and ends.
Look, Bapu's fasts, if you look at all his fasts that he did during his lifetime, there were very few, or there were none which were as protest fasts. There were always fasts that were for atoning for his own shortcomings, or when he considered that he needed to purify his soul, he would go on a fast. Or when he wanted to atone for the wrongdoings of people he thought he was responsible for, and felt that their actions were a reflection of his own weakness, he fasted during those days. Even the last 3 or 4 fasts where he fought for communal harmony, and except for the fast in Delhi, he did not lay down conditions for the fast. He said that my inner voice has told me that there is a weakness in my soul which is causing all this grief in my country and this kind of beastly attitude of my people. And I'm going to fast to atone for that. What happened was that the people started feeling guilty about, making him feel guilty. And so they reacted to that. It was only in Delhi that he put up a list of demands, saying that unless these demands were met, I will not leave my fast, because at that time he had realized that if what he held sacred was no longer going to be priority for his people and his nation, then it was worthless living in that nation. He was a very sad man at that point of time. It was the first of his fasts that he did in independent India. It was his people, his government, his nation, which was being torn apart to pieces. And that's when he said that, no, I must atone for this. And that is where that fast of his had all the conditions that people had to meet, after which he left the fast. He broke his fast. These days, and also one thing that we must understand is that his fast was always as a last recourse. He attempted all other means of convincing, he attempted all the dialogues and everything, and when everything else seemed to fail, only then he would consider it as a fast. These days, unfortunately, what has happened is that it's become a farce. It's, everybody just immediately declares that they're going to go on a fast. They go on a fast, and then the reason for giving up that fast is also as trivial as the reason for going on that fast. And so that whole concept has been trivialized. And that is where people also are disillusioned by the whole thing. And, if you look at the Anna movement, 1 year is a very short period in a life of a movement. And yet, from the first fast, till the final one where it seemed as if the movement was collapsing. It deteriorated, it shattered, it deunified. Within a short period of 1 year, the disenchantment had stepped in because there was dishonesty in the purpose. There was, rather than say there was dishonesty, I will say there was not the complete honesty of intention. And that is what defeated that whole movement and the strategy of fasting. People were not bothered. When the first one happened, the whole nation was ready to fast with him. When the last one happened, although it went on for 9 days, people were going about their lives unconcerned. And that is what caused, the dishonesty of intention that was there. The purpose wasn't focused enough. The purpose wasn't pure enough. And that is where it got derailed.